So I wrote a book. What a shocker. This is a writing channel. And in this video, I'm going to tell you all about that book. I am going to go through my entire writing process, all of the things that I learned, kind of do a bit of a recap on just how this book came into existence, because what I really like to do on this channel is take you completely behind the scenes and be super honest about what writing a book is like. And I will always be the first to say that I'm still learning things as a writer. I never feel like I arrive anywhere. I just feel like I continuously get opportunities to get better at writing and get better at storytelling. And I learned and grew a lot when writing this book. So I'm going to share all of those things with you. I'm going to talk about what this book is about, talk about the characters, the themes, all of my favorite things about the book, and I'm going to end doing a little Q&A. I asked some people to submit questions on Instagram yesterday and asked what they would be most interested in hearing me answer about the love trials, and so I'm going to answer those questions too. So the love trials tells the story of a girl named Eden whose entire family was murdered when she was 13. She was in foster care all of high school, and she's kind of down on her luck right now, and she's living out of her car, and she has this little geriatric chihuahua, and it's just her and her chihuahua, and she's doing day labor, she's working construction, she's trying to get by, she's trying to figure out how to process like the insurmountable grief that she is dealing with. And there's one night where she's taking her chihuahua to go to the bathroom, like just peeing right before going to bed, and this very scary man in this Walmart parking lot comes and attacks her. He strangles her from behind. She's like fighting for her life. She almost gets murdered herself when these two guys that are kind of like Back to the Future-esque guys, like I picture like a really, like when I first came up with the idea, the older guy was like a very, very tall, like crazy, like Doc Brown character with the crazy hair, and the other guy was like a really also super tall but really hot, like jacked Marty McFly, like, and the two of them rush in together and they get the attacker off of Eden, and then they do this like exorcism in the parking lot where they like extract a ghost from this guy who attacked Eden, and she's like sitting there watching this, seeing this ghost come out of this guy's body and has absolutely no idea what's going on. And she ends up learning from these guys that they are paranormal investigators that hunt the ghosts of dead serial killers, that when serial killers die in prison, they come back as entities and they can possess innocent people and continue killing from beyond the grave. And they can like kill from inside of these people's bodies, and then they'll leave those bodies and repossess other people, and nobody stops them, and the police puts innocent people in prison, thinking that those are the people that committed the murders, but really it was the entities that did it. So this really tall guy with the crazy hair, Doc Brown guy, is an ex-FBI agent who started this like team of paranormal investigators dedicated to extracting these entities to save the innocent people from killing other people and going to jail for crimes they didn't commit. So basically what happens is, because Eden can see ghosts, because in this world everyone who dies and is brought back to life can see ghosts in some capacity. It depends how long you were dead, like the longer you were dead, the more you can see and like the more sensitive you are, but you have to have died to be able to sense the supernatural at all. So because Eden had died, she can see ghosts, and so she gets recruited to this team of paranormal investigators, and she ends up joining this team. There are 6 characters in their early 20s, and this Doc Brown character who leads the group, and they all live together in this ghost safe house, and they hunt and like solve crimes and go hunt serial killers and try to race the police to catch them before the police can. So Eden joins the team, and she's getting along with everybody. She's making some friends. She's like assimilating nicely, and everybody seems to get along with her except for the team leader character, and he absolutely hates her, and she can't figure out why. He's like really kind of nasty to her and can't even bear to look at her, and when he does look at her, looks at her in really creepy ways, and like she gets bad vibes and she can't figure out what his deal is. He's also like, you know, super, super hot. And the team ends up hunting this one serial killer who is inspired by Saw and Jigsaw in particular. And this character, the game master, when he was alive in the 70s, took pairs of people, so like couples, brothers and sisters, mothers and children, and like pairs of people that really deeply loved each other, and forced them to participate in trials designed to prove that love has a breaking point. Like there's only so far you'd go for the person that you love. And so he made them like cut off their arms or like pull out their teeth or do really horrible things to try to like find the line that people wouldn't cross, even if it meant saving somebody that they loved. And so the game master has died in prison, and he is going and he's possessing somebody else, and they don't know who he's possessing. So the team has to try to figure out who he's possessing and find him. I created this whole system of ghost psychology and criminology, and like how ghost psychology differs from human psychology, and they use that to profile the hosts and like profile the ghost behavior, kind of like they do on Criminal Minds. And then Eden and Nico, who's the team leader who really does not get along with Eden, get captured by this game master, and like while they're doing the investigation, and the game master thinks that they're in love, but they're actually enemies, and he forces them to participate in these trials designed to like break their love, but they actually like are enemies, and are like Nico tries to outcompete Eden, and it becomes this whole big thing as they have to kind of work together to survive. It is also enemies to lovers. There is a lot of stuff that happens in this book. It is a huge book that encompasses a lot of different things. It has found family, it has enemies to lovers, it has a very complex ghost world building system, it has Criminal Minds vibes as they have to solve the mystery of the who the serial killer is and who he's possessing. They get into a lot of danger. It has lots of Saw vibes because they have to participate in these really gruesome trials to try and like outsmart the game master and survive. And it's coming out on April 28th. I am beyond excited. I've never loved a book like I love this book. Like, it just had completely captured my imagination. I wasn't planning to write this book when I did. I had the idea for this book in the summer of 2024, and I thought that I could make it a YA book. I had this idea of this like high concept idea of doing a Criminal Minds supernatural combo about a group of teens who hunt the ghosts of dead serial killers. But in that original conception, they were actual ghosts that were killing, so they weren't possessing anybody, because I had just done Possession and They Stay, and I thought that it would be interesting to try something new. So in that original idea, they were just ghosts, and it was like a group of teens, and that's kind of as far as I got with it. But at that time I was writing a different book, and I also had to finish They Stay, and I had to finish They Stay 5. And I really like to finish projects. Like, when I start working on a book or a book series, I like to finish that book or book series. I don't like leaving things open-ended. I don't like leaving manuscripts written that I haven't published or that aren't finished. Like, if I'm going to shelve it, I want it to be shelved as a finished product. I don't like abandoning projects halfway through. I really like compulsively sink my teeth into things. And so I was working on this other book about this girl who gets murdered, and she has to solve her own murder like after she dies, and it was kind of like a Good Place with murder, like a Good Place School Spirits type combo. And I was in the middle of writing that book, and I had an agent that was interested in seeing that book, and so I was like, this is an opportunity. I need to focus completely on this book. But that other ghost serial killers idea would not let me go, and so I forced it into a box. When I finished They Stay 5, I was like, I need to put everything aside just to finish They Stay 5. But I made a promise to myself. I was like, as soon as They Stay 5 or They Fall is out, I'm going to go back, and I'm going to go back to Dead Girls Can't Cry, which is this other YA standalone that I had. And I tried, and I could not let the ghost serial killers idea go. I was just like, my whole brain, like, I became obsessed. I had never ever felt like that about a book idea before. I was like completely locked in on that, and I was thinking about it all the time. I was coming up with different ideas. I was just constantly, like, my brain was turning on it. And finally I was like, all right, I need to focus on Dead Girls Can't Cry. I'm just gonna see if I can get this out of my system, and I'm just gonna write like the first couple chapters. And I had an outline for it because I couldn't let this idea go. Like, in one day I just created this outline and just dumped it onto the page. I didn't even use a plot grid. I always use plot grids. I plot grid everything, and I didn't even use a plot grid. This book just came to me linearly all at once, and it was one day of outlining where I spit out the entire outline. And I was like, okay, I want to write just the first couple of chapters. And I wrote the first couple of chapters, and I couldn't stop, and I didn't stop, and I wrote the first draft of that book in 6 weeks, and it was 200,000 words. I've never written 200,000 words ever in one, like, for one book. That was the longest book I've ever written, the fastest that I've ever written one. So it was really a deviation from my normal writing process, because usually I'll have an idea, and then I will do a story arc, and then I'll come up with my different scenes on my sticky notes, and then I will put everything out into a plot grid, and then I'll spend a couple weeks with my plot grid, and then I'll write. I bypassed the story grid, I bypassed the hero's journey, I bypassed like literally everything. I didn't do any part of my normal writing process. I vomited onto the page. And up until this point, I'd also never finished a book on my first draft. Usually, like, every single book that I'd ever written up until Love Trials, I got up till the climax, and then I had to stop and I had to go back to the beginning because I realized that I had set it up wrong, and that I'd like added a plot hole, and that I couldn't complete the climax because it just didn't make sense with the lead up that I had built. And so usually, like, every single book that I write, I get to 50 or 75%, then I have to scrap it and start again. Love Trials, I just finished. I shot all the way through that crazy brain dump outline that I came up with in one day, and the story actually held together. And I had like random edited, like the most disorganized editing notes that I've ever had for any book. Like I would just, as I was writing, if I thought of something I wanted to change, I'd just shoot it into a Scrivener document. And it was just like, they were all different fonts, they were all different sizes, and it's completely disorganized. After I finished that first draft, I forced myself to like take a week, but I was so obsessed with it, I couldn't even really take a week. I just jumped right back into it, and I went and I incorporated all those edits and those comments, and then I made the book longer. I think I made it up to like 240,000 words, and then I was like, oh my gosh, this book is just so long. I need to get beta reader feedback because I'm obsessed with this book. I love it, but I also knew that I couldn't really send it to beta readers if it was 240,000 words, and so I cut 90,000 words out of that draft, which was insane. I did that in like in just a couple weeks too. It was really fast. Like there were days that I cut 10,000 words out of the book, and it was a lot of like repetitive internal monologue, a lot of like, something happens in the book and then Eden processes it for a long time, and then I could really shorten down her processing. Stuff like that really let me condense the whole thing. So I condensed it, and then I sent it to beta readers. The 6 weeks that beta readers had this book were some of the longest 6 weeks of last year. It was agonizing for me to not be working on this book. I just never felt like this before. Like I loved this book more than any book that I'd ever written or really even read before. Like this is just my favorite story that I'd ever been able to jump into, and it was just so close to my heart, and I loved being in the world, and I loved the characters, and it was just my favorite place being in this world. Which is weird because a lot of the book is heavily inspired by Saw. Like I wouldn't want to be in the book, but like mentally I just wanted to be in the book. I fell completely head over heels in love, and I'm still completely head over heels in love. This book just has its hooks in me and isn't letting go. And I jumped into incorporating beta reader feedback at the earliest opportunity, and I just sent the book off to my editor last weekend. And so this is the first week that I've had where I haven't really had to work on the book, and it has been really, really sad. I've been like kind of bumbling around just working on other stuff and like spending the whole day doing emails, and emails are so boring. Like why do people send so many emails? It's just amazing how people get anything done when people have to spend so much time writing each other emails. But anyway, my writing process for this was just really interesting because it was so different from any process that I used to write a book before this, and it just really reaffirmed to me how different every book is and how you can be the same writer and the same author, but every book idea might need you to take a slightly different approach. Like a formulaic process might not work for every single idea. I've never birthed an idea and a full outline that worked from beginning to end in one day ever before this. That was so unique for me and such a cool experience. I got such a high when I was able to write that book all the way till the end, and my original outline still held up. Now, I got a lot of feedback from my beta readers, and I did a huge overhaul between the early November when I got their feedback and last week when I finally submitted it to my editor. I went through it all and like changed a ton of huge things. Like I changed a lot of my main character's early characterization. She was kind of a super annoying main character in hindsight, and I think that that's just because I was writing a lot of scenes in there and putting in scenes that I knew would probably do well on TikTok, and some of the over-exaggerated dialogue that typically does well on social media can sometimes lead to characters that can be a little bit annoying, and I think that maybe because of that could have helped build a version of her that was initially annoying. But I really changed her. I really changed Nico. I added a lot more between Eden and Nico in this new version, the final version that's going to be published, versus the one that I sent to beta readers. I updated all of the world building. Like literally, there was not one chapter from the original beta version that is going to end up untouched in the final version. It all went through a huge overhaul, and that was a lot of work, but I'm really, really, really excited about the final product. But yeah, so the main pieces of inspiration that I pulled from for this book are Criminal Minds, which is my all-time favorite TV show and my comfort TV show. I love Criminal Minds. It will always be my favorite. I pulled the criminology element from that and like the general structure. Like I'm really, really wanting to turn this into a series, and every book, it'll be like an anthology series. So like the team of ghost hunters will remain the same, but every book will focus on a different serial killer in a different case. And by the end of that book, we'll close the loop on that serial killer and like catch the killer and solve the case. So every book stands alone. I also drew a lot of inspiration about like the criminology element of Criminal Minds. And at like when I developed my own psychology and criminology world building around my ghosts and figured out how like being dead alters someone's psychology and how they would behave differently. I also pulled inspiration from my favorite Criminal Minds characters when developing all of the members of the team. And so all of the members of the team have become very different, but in their original conceptions, they were like, it drew heavily from Criminal Minds and like getting inspired from that. So Donnie, who is the Doc Brown type character, is also very heavily inspired by Jason Gideon, the kind of kind, gentle, wise, but also savage and whip smart mentor figure. Griffin, who is the like golden retriever, really super sarcastic, like jokester type character, was very inspired by Derek Morgan and also by Riddick from The Fourth Wing, kind of like a combo of those two characters. He has a lot of flirty banter, like he's the kind of character who flirts with everybody and like doesn't outwardly take anything too seriously, even though he would die for any member on his team. Zoe, who's the hacker and just an unbelievable computer person, her job is inspired by Penelope Garcia, like she's supposed to be the Garcia type hacker, but her personality is more like April from Parks and Rec. Like she calls everybody an idiot. She's got or like Rosa Diaz from Brooklyn Nine-Nine. Like she's the kind of very hard ass, like she insults her team members all the time. She's very blunt, very to the point, very serious, doesn't like socializing, doesn't really want anything to do with them, but is very deep down like very endeared to them and would do absolutely anything for them. She's just not outwardly showing her love, and she's not a bubbly person, but she's a total badass. And because everything that they do on the team is completely illegal, like they're doing everything under the table because like the cops don't really know what they're doing or like why they're doing it. And so she like is a very, very good hacker that Donnie found, because Donnie also was in the FBI before he started the team. Donnie found Zoe because she was like a criminal and like doing criminal hacking and like absolutely incredible and able to trip up even the FBI hackers like when she was a teenager, and so he ended up recruiting her when he started building this team. Benji was supposed to be my genius character, and he was originally very like basically just a young Spencer Reid. Like I just wanted to have a character with an eidetic memory who could be really, really smart and be spitting facts all the time, but in my beta reader feedback, most people just said that he came across like a giant robot. Like he wasn't endearing, he was just like Wikipedia, he would just like spew facts, and that was because he wasn't super heavily featured in my original draft. And so in my new version, I featured him more and I pulled more of his character out and built his character more. So he's like, he has an eidetic memory, he's really smart, but he is smart in like the way that he remembers everything he reads. He's not like every single time he talks, he's like Wikipedia. He's the youngest member of the team. He's like boy wonder. He's the little, like kind of the little kid. I mean, he's 19. He's not that little, but he's kind of tired all the time. And so he's always yawning and he has like this sleepy smile and he's like always kind of really chill and kind of low energy, but he is absolutely whip smart and can remember anything that anyone asks him to remember, and his contributions are really, really useful to the happenings of the team. He's like the cinnamon roll sleepy kid that everybody wants to protect. DJ's original inspiration came from Jennifer Jarreau. Like she's the kind of character that just talks a mile a minute and she's like constantly word vomiting on everybody and is really enthusiastic and is the kind of girl that just will want to be your friend and that makes you feel like you're her best friend after 5 minutes of meeting her. She's more like Enid from Wednesday. It's been a long time since I've seen Wednesday, but a lot of my beta readers pointed out that connection. And Nico is heavily inspired by Aaron Hotchner from Criminal Minds and also Zayden Ryerson from The Fourth Wing, kind of like a combo of those two characters. He's got like the very serious, like kind of leadership style of Aaron Hotchner with the like very dry humor, but he also has the sarcasm of Zayden Ryerson, but he delivers it in a very dry way, and he's super guarded, and so it takes a really long time to kind of get him comfortable enough to be making the like sarcastic jokes, but he's very witty. It just takes a long time for his walls to come down. And he has like the most tragic backstory of any character that I've ever written, and so for good reason. And Eden was an original. She didn't really have any character inspo from Criminal Minds, but Criminal Minds had a very big influence when inspiring the original version of this book. And then as I've reworked it, the characters have gotten farther and farther away from these original conceptions, but that was where the inspiration came from. I also drew a lot of inspiration from Supernatural. Not so much in the characters, although Nico does wear a leather jacket, like Dean. And the ghost safe house that they all live in, like the ghost hunting safe house, was inspired by Bobby's house in Supernatural. And the other thing that was inspired by Supernatural was the world building. The whole idea of like salting and burning ghosts. It's not exactly the same. You don't salt and burn anchor objects in this world, but the vibe is the same. Like I wanted it to feel similar. I wanted it to feel kind of like retro, like ghost world building, so it wasn't too like modern and technical, and it felt nostalgic like you were watching Supernatural. So in the love trials, salt works against ghosts and iron works against ghosts, but there are also a lot more like complicated world building-y things that I do that are different from Supernatural. I also pulled some world building inspiration from Lockwood & Co. I really liked how they were able to trap ghosts in Lockwood & Co. And so I kind of took that idea and twisted it, and in the love trials they can't destroy ghosts unless they find their anchor object, and they destroy the anchor object. So until they're able to find this anchor object, like the object that the ghost's soul is somehow tethered to, they contain the ghosts and they keep them in a vault in the basement of their safe house, so they have this basement filled with serial killer ghosts that they can take out and interview and talk to if they need to. So you get kind of like the Silence of the Lambs, like Conversations with Hannibal Lecter, but they're all these different ghosts that are like in morgue drawers, like in containment in their house. I also pulled inspiration from Saw when creating the Game Master and the trials that Nico and Eden have to participate in. I wanted them to feel familiar in a way, like they could belong in one of the Saw movies, but I wanted them to feel original enough that it didn't feel like you were just reading the same thing that you've already read before. Combining the Saw element with the enemies to lovers element made this feel really fresh to me, because it doesn't feel the same, like reading this doesn't feel the same as watching Saw, because these two characters care about each other and are kind of falling in love while going through this, and so the emotional stakes are extremely high. And it was very fun to be able to use the Saw games as a narrative device to be able to push the characters together and pull them apart. So those are kind of my comp titles, and another book that I would comp this one to would be The Naturals by Jennifer Lynn Barnes. These characters are older, they are in their early 20s, so it's not just a teen group of like gifted kids that are hunting serial killers. There's also a lot more supernatural world building and like supernatural stuff going on here. It is also way darker because of the Saw stuff, but the general structure of like young people hunting serial killers is similar. I'm really excited because I am also planning to do a special edition hardcover pre-order. I've been talking to readers and seeing what kind of pre-order they'd be interested in, and I'm designing a hardcover edition of this book, which I am so psyched about. I'm gonna do like forced edges, which is like the kind of printing on the spine or like on the pages of the book. So when you see like the pages, there'll be art and stuff printed on the actual edges of the pages, which is gonna be super cool. I have a ton of art that I'm commissioning. I'm doing custom chapter headers, custom page breaks. I am writing a bunch of bonus content, and just all of that's gonna be super exciting. I've never done hardcover printing before like that. Like the only experience I had with hardcovers is printing them through Ingram Spark, but there were a lot of things I wanted to do with this hardcover that Ingram Spark doesn't allow you to do. And so I did a lot of research figuring out all the different printing options and the pricing for all the different printers out there that can do things like sprayed edges and colored like foiling on the covers and colored pages and things like that. In case you're interested in the behind the scenes business stuff, the main printers that I've found that do these like hardcovers with the jackets and the foiling and the sprayed edges are Book Vault, which prints these in the UK. They also have US-based printers, but they only print like these special edition hardcovers in the UK as of the time of filming this video. There's also CC, which is a Chinese printer, and another Chinese printer that I found through the recommendation of another author who I've been messaging on Instagram. I got quotes from them. I originally didn't think that I could use Book Vault because they had by far the fastest shipping. Like they ship with FedEx, and I think it's between like 1 and 5 days that it arrives from the UK to me all the way in rural Montana, which is crazy. But that would be like $10 per book of shipping to get it from the UK to me. So if I'm ordering 200 books, that's like $2,000 in shipping. So that's insane. But the actual printing of the book, if I don't do foiling, if I don't do sprayed edges, if I just do a standard basic hardcover with no colored paper or anything, I can get it down to roughly like $13, which puts me in at like $23 in base cost for each of those hardcover books, working with Book Vault. I could get that down a lot more. The quotes that I got from the Chinese printers were significantly lower, but shipping time was much longer. It would take like a good 3 months to ship it because it would be shipped on the boat coming across from China, and the timeline just didn't work out for this particular release. I don't exactly know how much printing the books is going to be. I only got the quote because I uploaded all my files from They Fall, just so that I could get a ballpark idea, but They Fall is like 520 pages, and The Love Trials is probably going to be closer to 600 pages, 620 pages. It's longer, so I think that the production is going to be slightly higher and the shipping might be slightly higher because this is a heavier book. Plus, I'm doing all of that art and all of the bookmarks and goodies that I'm going to send along with every book. And I want to make sure that I calculate shipping, and I'm going to offer international shipping as well. But I just got a quote from USPS, and international shipping is crazy expensive. So I have to go get quotes from FedEx and from UPS to try to figure out what the cheapest way to do international shipping is. I am working on all of this because I want to make sure that I can get hardcovers and like make this a really, really fun thing where I can put together like a beautiful hardcover package with all of this like custom artwork and stuff. And I would sign every book. I'm going to personalize all of them. And I want to make sure I can price that at a point where it's as low as I can make it for readers, but that I also like am not losing money on it, because there is a lot of cost that goes into like getting all the packaging materials, printing all of the art, printing all of the bookmarks, commissioning all the art with shipping and printing the books and all that stuff. So that's a little peek behind the curtain at the business side of things, but I have found that the group Kickstarter for Authors on Facebook is incredibly helpful with this. It has really helped me learn about like how to make forced edges and like what different printing options are even available and what people's experiences are with all the different printing options. I'm not running a Kickstarter, I'm just doing a pre-order, and I'm going to manage it through my website so that I can get people like to put in their information and I can personalize it and all that stuff. I'm not running a Kickstarter, I'm just doing it through my website, so it's slightly different, but it's a great place to get information about the printers and what's available out there for hardcovers. I'm pretty sure that Book Vault does do hardcovers in the US printers, but they don't have a dust jacket, and I really wanted to do a dust jacket. This has all been such a fun learning experience though. I'm so excited to get my hands on one of these books. Like, it's gonna be gorgeous. I'm so excited. Okay, so yesterday I asked people if they had any questions for me about the Love Trials, anything that they were interested in learning, anything that they just wanted to know, and now I'm gonna do a brief Q&A right at the end of this video. So the first question is, to what extent do you plan out the subsequent books in the series? I have 6 books in this series, not fully outlined, but I have a very strong concept for what each serial killer would be. I actually have 7 concepts for different serial killers and the cases that the team would be able to solve. I don't have the full outline yet because outlining an investigation is hard and it takes a lot of brain power and keeping track of all those moving pieces. Like, all those moving pieces are going to change around, so I haven't outlined them yet, but I have a very clear idea of who I want the serial killer to be, what kind of crimes they're going to commit during the book, and the general arc of the investigation. Like, if there are giant plot turns and things like that, I will write those in my outlines. I don't want to give away too many details of these other plots that I have in mind already, but I have one serial killer that is drawing inspiration from the episode of Criminal Minds, Mosley Lane, because that was one of the scariest episodes that I had watched and the one that stuck with me probably the most. Maybe not the most, but one of the ones that stuck with me the most. I have another one that draws inspiration from the real-life serial killer, the Toy Box Killer, changing a lot of things, but that case freaks me out, and just that guttural reaction really makes me feel something, and taking inspiration from that and trying to figure out what about it makes me feel that way and recreating that feeling in the fictional serial killer that I would create. I think doing some sort of medical one would be really interesting, especially if it was like a ghost that was alive in like the early 1900s or something that's now possessing somebody else, because the medical practices or like the surgical tools or whatever that ghost would have used in the early 1900s, the tools available today would be different. And I also really would love to be able to tie in some sort of cipher, like some sort of code that my genius character has to decode, and like have him be really heavily featured in one of these, where like he's the reason that they're able to solve the case because he can crack the code and like figure out the pattern in how one serial killer is operating. So I guess I would say I have a vision, but I don't have an outline. I just have a concept and a general feeling for how I want things to evolve over subsequent books. Another question I got is, how do you overcome writer's block when you write yourself into a corner? To be completely honest, I never wrote myself into a corner with this book. It just all poured right out of me, and the version of it that I'm going to publish is the exact same structure of plot as the one that I originally had in my exact first draft. Like, I changed some things, I added some scenes, but the way that the events go down is the same. So this isn't a really super great example of what I usually do when I have writer's block, but also my normal answer to this question is nothing special. I don't have any groundbreaking new strategies for ways to overcome writer's block. I just force my way through it. I sit my butt in my chair and I force myself to write every single day, even on the days that I don't want to, even on the days that I'm sick, even on the days that I am tired. I just force myself to write, and I write right through the writer's block. If I'm hung up on a scene, sometimes I find that the problem is that I've set up that scene wrong. Like, it's sometimes not an issue with the scene, but it's an issue with like a scene a couple chapters back, or just like with the plot in general, which is why I usually had to stop writing my books at the climax, because I'd set up the climax wrong and I had to go back and fix it. But it's just about persistence, and it's about doing it even when you don't want to. That's how I overcome writer's block. I don't wait to be motivated. I love being motivated, and I love what I do so much. The feeling that this book gives me made it so that every single day I got to write it was the best day in the world. I just loved the whole process so much, and I'm already so excited to dive into the sequel and to really start like continuously going with these characters, just because I love it so much. And I just love what I do so much that even on the days that I don't really want to write something, or it just feels hard, I love the story. And I don't know, I feel like this is a really lame answer. I'm sorry. I just love writing so much that I don't really have lack of motivation ever. That's never been a problem that I've struggled with. It's always about solving problems in the plot. Like, if I feel like something's not working, it's not that I have writer's block, like I can't write, it's just like that scene isn't working, so I have to write some more or go back and rewrite something in order to make that scene work. The next question I got was, what soundtracks inspired you to write this story, if any? I wouldn't say there were soundtracks that inspired this story, but I love listening to horror soundtracks when I write. I kind of alternate. Like, I will listen to horror soundtracks because they'll get me in the right mindset. I love listening to the Fear Street soundtracks. I love listening to just general horror playlists on Spotify. Anything that's atmospheric and kind of makes me unsettled listening to it, it puts me in the right headspace for what I'm writing. I listen to the Saw soundtrack a lot when writing love trials. But I also alternate, like if I'm feeling low in energy, it kind of depends on what work I'm doing. Sometimes I can draft while listening to music with lyrics, and I do that a lot. And I really like listening to like really high energy, like early 2000s club hits or like 90s club music, like just really, really high energy music that I would normally dance to. I also really like listening to sped up songs because something about the sped up songs keeps my attention and prevents me from getting distracted. But this story wasn't really inspired by music in any way. I just have music, like I made a playlist actually of songs that remind me of this story, and I put that playlist on my website if you're interested in checking it out. I've been talking for so long that my voice has started to hurt, which is usually what happens when I get to talking about this book. So I'm going to wrap it up with one last question, which is, what is your favorite letter to type? I would say it's a toss-up between F and J, just because they actually have a little bit of texture to the keys. I also find it really satisfying when I can use my pinky finger to hit enter and start a new paragraph, although that's not technically a letter, so I don't know if that counts. But thank you so much for watching this video. I am so beyond grateful that you took the time to listen to me talk about my passion project and how much I love this story. I am so excited that this book is coming out in April. I am so excited that I will finally be able to share this final version with everybody. I just am so in love with the edits that I made, and I can't wait for it to go out into the world. I'm also really excited to start working on more series planning. I haven't had the book to work on this week and haven't really known what to do with myself, so that won't last very long because I will be immediately jumping into another project probably as early as next week. At least right now I get to go write the bonus content. I have at least one Nico POV that I get to write in the next couple of days, so very jazzed about that. But thank you so much for watching this video. If you have a second, I'd be super grateful if you could like it and also subscribe to my channel. My name is Fraise, and I'm an award-winning author who makes weekly videos sharing actionable writing tips that helped me make my own writing better, along with the occasional video like this talking about books that I'm working on, the different things that I'm learning, because I am an author who is doing this and learning about all these things just like you are. I hope you have an amazing week, everybody, and as always, happy writing.